Iridia. If you can hear my voice, we are in great need of you. The veil has been broken, and a great darkness sweeps across our lands. He is death. And we need your light. Before it's too late. Send us your champion of light. Hey everyone, it's Area of Effect with another out-of-the-box build, the Ayleid Conqueror Build. This is a Magicka Necromancer, but not so much a Dark Necromancer. Take a look at the stat screen. We've got over 3,500 spell damage, 36,000 max Magicka, a lot of recoveries, check it out, and almost 30% crit. That's going to be important. Clockwork Citrus Fillet for a lot of max health, max Magicka, and the health and Magicka recoveries. And actually, the boon we're going with is the Serpent for stamina recovery, as we're wanting to break free for days, and I'll get to that in a minute. But although the spell damage is 3,500 and could be higher, a lot of our damage comes from our glyphs, which don't scale off the weapon and spell damage, but they can crit. And remember, we have 36,000 max Magicka, and if you missed it, 12,000 penetration. We are a Dark Elf for the max Magicka and max stamina. We want to double dip into those resources. You get that flame resistance and you get that weapon and spell damage by 258. Let's take a look at the gear now. On the back bar, we've got a lightning staff. It's the Maelstrom's perfected lightning staff. I know the glyph damage is very high and the infused trait is up to 60%. I'll explain how. If you don't have the Maelstrom lightning staff, you can go with a Torug's Pact lightning staff, which is our first 5-piece set, Torug's Pact. On the front bar, the Inferno staff of Torug's Pact, with the magic damage and Magicka Restore glyph. Look at the penetration, 6,500. I'll explain that in a minute. 2, 3, 4 trait, are not bad. Let's read the 5th. Decrease weapon enchantment cooldown by 33%, and Oblivion damage weapon enchantment potency, non-Oblivion, by 45%. So more damage from your glyph and a quicker rate of fire off. The monster set we're wearing is one of the best table turner monster sets for PvP in the game, I believe. Zol the Ever Wakeful. Max Stam, when you break free, you release a wave of Watcher energy, causing all enemies within 8 meters of you to become feared, and you gain 34 weapon and spell damage for each enemy hit, up to 6 enemies for 7 seconds. So every time you break free, a blue wave goes out, and these tentacles come out. They look pretty awesome, by the way. The next 5-piece set, Ayleid's Conqueror. It's a craftable set. Weapon damage, spell damage, max Magicka, max stamina, increases the effectiveness of your weapon traits by 100%. So sharpened trait on a weapon will go to double, so will defending and precise, and infused will also go up from 30 to 60%, which is how we're getting so much penetration there from the Inferno staff and 60% from the back bar lightning staff from the infused trait. So with Torug's Pact and Heartlands and infused, you're triple dipping into your glyph power. And there's a way to even go further into that dip, which is why I was able to put on the Maelstrom's perfected lightning staff on one bar and Torug's Pact on the other bar, because when you lay your blockade with the Maelstrom's perfected lightning staff, the glyph on the blockade will fire off as if Torug's Pact is active, even though it's not, when you switch to your Inferno staff, because Torug's Pact becomes active. Taking it a step further even, we have the sharpened trait on the Inferno staff bar. So the glyph from the back bar and everything else fires off at the higher rate, but also with the bigger penetration. So that might be a bit confusing, so I put together a clip to demonstrate what exactly I mean. So my lightning blockade is down. You see the 12,000, now the 7,400, the 12,000 number? I'm on my Inferno staff. Let me do it again. Lightning blockade swap, and you'll see the glyph number 7830, and then the 7830, 12,684. That was the glyph. It's firing off with the penetration of my Inferno staff of Torug's Pact, but it's the lightning glyph from the back bar. Now I also have a glyph on the Inferno staff itself with the sharpened trait. Remember the Magicka glyph deals Magicka and restores Magicka? It's also going to fire off while right there, 3581, and restores 513. It's going to fire off while the lightning one's firing off as well, so you're getting 2 glyphs firing simultaneously. You want to go further, you lose your penetration, but take an infused trait Inferno staff, and now you've got infused on both bars, lay the blockade, and then you look at all the numbers that the glyphs are going to be double firing with a higher potency, a smaller cooldown, both from Torug's Pact and infused, and the potency from Torug's Pact and Heartland. And that one there, look, it restores even more Magicka to you. And there's also a magic damage and restore health I think I have one here. Well, there's a shock one again. Well, I can do, but you can't double dip into shock. You can't have a shock on the back bar and a shock on the front bar, and it will double dip, by the way. It's one thing that breaks this build. The whole point is to double dip. So if you have a frost glyph on the back bar and a frost glyph on the front bar, it will not work. You cannot double proc the same glyph. They are on the same cooldown, which, by the way, isn't written anywhere in the game. So an elemental glyph, disease, poison, shock, fire, frost, without anything buffing, you've got a 5-second cooldown, which means it'll fire off every 5 seconds. If you've got Torg's Pact, it reduces the cooldown by 30%. If you've got Infused, it reduces the cooldown by an even further 50%. So you end up going to like 2.5 seconds and like 1.8 seconds. This is how glyphs work. Now, the only exception is weapon damage, like the Berserker glyph, the 348, or a debuff like Crusher glyph. They have a 10-second cooldown without anything at base. So if you proc a weapon damage glyph, it's going to last for 5 seconds and you got a 5-second cooldown. But if you run a weapon damage glyph on a infused trait, it's up 5 and then ready to proc again at the end of 5. So 100% uptime. Let's take a look at the skills now. On the front bar, Inferno Staff, we've got Force Pulse. You could do Crushing Shock, but we want that AoE damage around any enemy that has a status effect on them. It'll deal more damage around the primary target. So with light attacks and Crushing Shock or Force Pulse, it's a great way to weave single target damage, and you're going to get a very high glyph proc rate as well. The next heal is Resistant Flesh. Heals you for 11,000, almost 12,000, but applies minor defile to yourself and reduces your healing received. But will buff your physical and spell resistance for 3 seconds, half the amount healed. When you're burst healing through a pinch, that's going to really add up when you need it, that 3 seconds. So our physical and spell resistance would be higher than what the stat screen showed. Next skill, Stalking Blast Bones. It deals 13,000 flame damage to all enemies nearby. We all know what this skill is. It sends the skeleton out. He's bluish. This morph, the longer he travels, the more damage he deals to all enemies around the primary target. I like to think of him as a conjured Ayleid soul, conjured by the Ayleid king. Anyway, so the next skill, Degeneration. It deals 18,000 magic damage over 12 seconds, but that's where we're going to get our major sorcery for our spell damage buff for 24 seconds, increasing our spell damage by 20%. There is no major sorcery skill on a Necromancer class, so this is how we get it, and it also deals damage. Inner Light. We want this slotted because not just the max Magicka, but because of the extra spell crit, because some of the ways to buff a glyph, are penetration, and of course a glyph can crit. So the higher your critical rating, the more likely your glyph is going to crit, and we're dealing big numbers with our glyph damage, so we're going to get extra multiplied bonus damage from that crit. The ultimate, Shooting Star. What better ultimate for Meridia's Champion of Light, who teleported down from space on a beam, than a Shooting Star? 15,000 flame damage to the primary target and all enemies in the area. Stuns them for 2 seconds. Also leaves a area of effect damage over time on the ground, and restores ultimate to you for more enemies hit. And the passives under the Mages Guild for Magicka Controller increase max Magicka and recovery by 2% for each Mages Guild ability slotted. We're getting 6% recovery and max Magicka from that. Inner Light, Structured Entropy, Degeneration, and Shooting Star. And actually a lot of uptime of Empower from all those skills. So let's take a look at the next bar, the Lightning Staff bar. Let's buff up here. Our first skill is Braided Tether. Siphon the last remnants from a corpse, healing for almost 20,000, because again it could crit, over 12 seconds to yourself and all allies around you. And the cool thing about that is it has this beam. So there's a corpse, I'm going to grab it, and you look awesome. And of course you're just pulling energy from the cosmos, from life itself, and you're healing with it, turning death into life for others in a very benevolent way. The next skill, Unstable Wall. It deals, shock damage every second, 1257, knocks him off balance. But we picked unstable so that way when it ends, it'll blow up. But you can spam it and end it quicker, and it'll blow up and blow up and blow up for kind of increased bursty AoE direct damage, damage. But we picked Blockade for the glyph application, and the reason why we picked it is because if you would pick like Destructive Reach, you'd have a single target damage over time, but it wouldn't continue to reapply the glyph automatically. It's got to be a ground-based weapon ability. Same thing for the bow and arrow. If you use the Endless Hail versus Poison Injection. Poison Injection is not going to keep reprocking it. Next skill, Consuming Trap. Almost 14,000 magic damage over 10 seconds, but if an afflicted enemy dies, you will restore health, magicka, and stamina. Look at that blue glow. It looks perfect for the theme of this build, by the way. The amount of magicka, stamina, and health restored is dictated by the maximum values that you have statistically. Next skill, Spirit Guardian. For 16 seconds, you'll conjure this healing ghost next to you. Every 2 seconds will heal you or an ally for 4,500 health. And while he's out, 10% of the damage you take is given to him. So it's pretty cool. It's the same value as Major Protection. And even further, under the Living Death passive, Undead Confederate, while you have him active, your health, magicka, and stamina recovery is increased by 200 passively. So the next skill, Summoner's Armor. We get our Major Resolve and Major Ward, almost 6,000 physical and spell resistance. But while it's active, the cost of our Blast Bones and our Skeletal Mage is reduced by 15%. Also, it will leave a corpse, so you could use that for Braided Tether. And this is what it looks like here. It matches our theme as well perfectly. Lastly, the ultimate on this bar is Shooting Star again. So I've got that double slotted for the Mages Guild passives. Look, if you want to use the Bone Goliath or the Flesh Atronach, by all means, go ahead. Let's jump into the CP trees now. I say it in every one of my videos. The green tree really doesn't have as much impact in the battle, aspect of everything, but there are a couple I'd go for. There's the reduced fall damage by 35%. There's maybe the one where you don't, especially on this build, you don't have the glyph consumption as right there, the weapon enchantments. I mean, so there's some things you could do, but for the most part, do the green tree how you'd like. Getting into the blue trees, Fighting Finesse, increase critical damage and critical healing done by 10%. Glyphs can crit, so that 10% is going to matter. Increase your damage done with direct damage attacks by 10%. That's also going to apply to our glyphs. And Deadly Aim, single target attacks by 10%. That's going to apply to our glyphs as well. Untamed Aggression is just going to give us that 150 weapon and spell damage. You could swap that out for Arcane Supremacy if you'd like for 1,300 additional max magicka, but I thought we were doing just fine. But yes, I'm highlighting Fighting Finesse. I'd definitely go with this one because those glyphs can crit, and we got high value numbers to start with, so that crit's going to be even higher. All right, Red Tree, Strategic Reserve, 30 health recovery for every 10 ultimate you have. So hold on to your ultimate as long as you can. That's how we had such a high health recovery number. Sustained by Suffering, while under the effects of a negative effect, 150 health, magicka, and stamina recovery. Peace of Mind, while under the effects of crowd control immunity, 200 health and magicka recovery, and then Rejuvenation, 90 health, magicka, and stamina recovery. So a lot of recoveries on this build. We want to keep going and keep going so we can sustain well and stick around for the long fight. So that's going to wrap up the CP trees, and that's actually going to wrap up this build video, the Ayleid Conqueror Build, a Magicka Necromancer, but I believe one of the first of its kind to be more of a benevolent Necromancer. This build was a lot of fun to make, guys, figuring out a way to use those sets and triple dip into those glyphs, and almost feel like I'm cheating with this build a little bit, but it takes a little while to get a handle on some things in the rotation, but it's a lot of fun to play. And I just wanted to add that I know I mentioned a few videos back that I was in kind of the last stage of my channel, and I've been pushing these builds out at a slower rate than I'd like. And I hope you guys have enjoyed these last several. I've got a couple more, and I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around. You know, depending on how things go, you know, maybe in the turn of the new year, we're heading into 2022, I'll decide to go ahead and give it another patch. Let me know what you guys think. And look, Christmas is just around the corner. I want to wish you guys all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do. Trying to think of what all that includes. So just disregard that last request. Have fun. Spend time with family. You never know how long they're going to be with us. And I appreciate you all. If you like this build and you want to see more, head on over to my channel, Area of Effect. I've got a lot of content on there, and you might find something that you've always wanted to find and didn't even know you were looking. So, and it's kind of funny, actually, out of all the videos, the builds that I've made and released in just the last 2 years even, the Son of Dagon build, a Stamina Dragon Knight with 11 wards, but it's still a damage dealer, and the Pestilent Swarm, a Stamina Warden, those 2 builds I just released are on my channel, have been amongst my favorites. And if you want to see those, head on over. Like I said, guys, I got a lot of content on there. Check it out. Like, subscribe, comment, share. And as always, thanks for watching. Area of Effect, signing out.